So you guys are still watching Game On, and as promised, nandito po ang ilan sa mga representatives mula sa NCAA. But before we introduce them one by one, allow me to introduce first my partners here on the show. Mr. Pure Business and Pleasure, Anton Ross is here, and Coach Hammer, Martin Antonio. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here. Okay, good afternoon. We're so formal right now. Okay, reason why we have gathered here is because, you know, we want to address all of the opinions because they're having a lot of opinions in this past week, these past few days, opinions, speculations regarding the incident that we had last week here in the NCAA. And here to officially clear the air and address some of those issues, unahin ko muna, i-introduce ang President ng NCAA Season 98 Policy Board. We have here from Emilio Aguinaldo College, Dr. Jose Paulo E. Campos.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Next, we have the NCAA Management Committee representative from the Lyceum of the Philippines University, and he also acts as the chairman of the Ad Hoc Investigating Committee regarding this incident. We have Sir Hercules Calianta.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Coach.
And next, we also have here to further address this issue, we have here NCAA's legal counsel, Attorney Joseph Noel M. Estrada.
Good afternoon, Martin, Anton, and Coach, and to all your televiewers. Good afternoon.
Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Hope you're comfy. I hope you're doing fine. Okay, so again, I repeat, reason why we're doing this is to address some of the issues and speculations, opinions na nakikita natin online and elsewhere. All right, let's start with our first question here. Oh, let's start with a statement from the NCAA, and that's going to be delivered by attorney. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So we have our official statement. So I'll read it first before we go to the questions. So the official statement of the NCAA on the DLSCSB versus JRU game on November 8, 2022 reads as follows. On behalf of the National Collegiate Athletic Association, we issue this statement in the matter of the incident that transpired during the game of De La Salle College of St. Benilde and JRU on November 8, 2022. We wish to let everyone know that the NCAA joins the public sentiment, condemnation, and outrage against violence and hooliganism in sports, and that we do not tolerate nor encourage violence in any form. We, however, appeal for sobriety as the public continues to express sentiments on the incident and refrain from encouraging more violence or issuing statements, videos, and call-outs that suggest the same. We wish to reiterate that the NCAA has immediately dealt with the players involved in the incident by issuing the corresponding sanctions through the MANCOM in its resolution dated November 9, including the imposition of an indefinite suspension on Mr. Amores from the NCAA. The resolution of the MANCOM was arrived at after careful deliberation, due process, and in accordance with the NCAA's Manual of Operations. Due to the gravity of the offense, our collective response to the incident does not end there as we continue to review our internal rules, processes, possible changes, and interventions to ensure that incidents such as this are deterred, discouraged, and prevented from happening again in the future. We have also initiated internal discussions on player support, not only in terms of physical fitness and training, but in their mental health and well-being as well. We wish to thank the respective officials of College of St. Benilde and Jose Rizal University for cooperating with the NCAA in resolving the matter and for initiating dialogues directly between them to de-escalate the tension and the emotions surrounding the incident. We also respect the decision of some of the parents of the players who have taken the issue to judicial processes as this is well within their rights. On this development, the NCAA is not in the position anymore to give its comments on the culpability and liabilities of Mr. Amores and others involved under the law, and shall defer the matter to the discretion of the authorities in the courts. And finally, we wish to reiterate that the NCAA, the oldest collegiate athletic association in the country, is an association of educational institutions, and the players involved are students. As such, we undertake to address the incident consistent with learning and student discipline, as we ensure sanctions imposed do not undermine the gravity of the offense and that it deters others from committing the same acts. We also ensure that the sanctions will leave a space for reformation and rehabilitation of erring players, no matter how small. And consistent with the tradition and reputation of the NCAA as a training ground of student athletes that eventually became legendary professional players that bring honor to our country, we remain committed in aligning our association's goals with the country's promotion of sports development to foster physical fitness, self-discipline, teamwork, and excellence among the Filipino youth. Maraming salamat po.
Okay. Attorney, thank you so much. That's the official statement of the NCAA regarding this incident, that incident last week. Now, Attorney, speaking of public sentiments, now we've had a lot of that in the past week. A lot of issues came up. So, we'll go into specifics kung yun sa mga ilang mga issue, mga, ano ba, na surrounding this incident. And we'll start with the public sentiment that all these could have been avoided if JRU didn't field John Amores in the first place. And if the NCAA had been more vigilant, since the two organizations were aware of his history, particularly the case filed against him by another student athlete. Your thoughts on this, Attorney?
Okay, so I think we're referring to the first incident involving Mr. Amores in another league. So yun po ang una po sanang gustong linawin. Yun po ay nangyari during the off-season in the UCBL, a different league from the NCAA. And it involved JRU but with another team, UP, na hindi naman NCAA member. So although yan naman ay nasa news at nakarating din sa NCAA, but NCAA as an association cannot just intervene there, no? They are governed by their own rules, may sariling rules din yung NCAA, at siguro nga kung formally hiningi yung intervention ng NCAA, ng UP or ng UCBL, baka nga maaring nagkaroon ng action. But mabilis yung pangyayari, nagkaroon na rin ng case na final sa fiscal involving the players, at kaya naman hands-off na rin kami doon. But siguro dun sa tanong na bakit hindi sinuspinde ng NCAA dahil may criminal case, I think we also need to be careful on that because it will establish a precedent. No? Baka naman in the future, kakasuhan ng player para masuspinde, napakadaling gawin po noon. So, naging maingat din po ang NCAA.
Okay.
Maraming salamat, Attorney. In line with Martin's first question, marami po kasing nagsasalita on social media. Ano po yung reaction ninyo sa criticism that the NCAA mismanaged the Amores crisis and that the organization was victimizing the victims?
Well, actually, if you look at the sanctions, all the sanctions were governed by the rules and regulations that the NCAA function on, such as those that are in the MOO. We have a manual of operations. We are guided strictly by all those rules. And there are rules pertaining to, especially in this case, during the brawl, kahit sinong nasa loob na hindi dapat nasa loob, they should be penalized in the interest of preserving peace and order. Kung may nangyayari ng brawl, we want to minimize it as much as possible. Therefore, everyone who is not supposed to be there should not be there. And you'll be penalized if you enter.
All right, Coach, as a follow-up to that question, take us back to your decision to suspend both players or players from both JRU and CSB. How did you come up with that decision and determine which players should be suspended and which players shouldn't?
As I stated a while ago, yan pong lahat ng suspensions at saka sanctions are under the manual of operations. Lahat po yan, mayroon kaming rules pertaining to them, ranging from being involved actively in the brawl and also entering the court. Kasi po pagka ganyang magulo na, we want to minimize as much as possible the brawl and contain it. Kaya po importante talaga na anyone who doesn't have anything to do with the game at hand, no? Kahit umaawat ka pa, kailangan mong nasa labas to minimize the problem.
Well, Anton, you know, there's one thing we've already done, which is to supplement and retrain our security people
Yes.
because there was really a failure there to control this incident on the part of our security people. So we have already supplemented them and given some new training to these people.
Meron na nga pong pulis ngayon sa loob. No?
At nakita po natin, napakabilis ng mga bouncers yesterday nung nagkaroon ng tulakan in one of our games yesterday.
Coach, kasi binibuild up natin, NCAA, lalong-lalo na po ngayon, yung competition natin papasok sa Final Four prior to the incident. Dikit-dikit po yung laban, attorney, president. Talagang dikdikan po yung laban. And we are known as a physical league. I mean, hanggang saan po ba yung responsibility ng ating mga game officials? Kasi kung na-control po, hindi magpapang-abot. Simpleng-simple po eh. Kasi where do the referees draw the line? Dahil we let them play physical, we let them play basketball the way that we're used to, but when do we draw the line?
Can I answer that? Yeah. Well, Coach, ano kasi, marami nga tayong narinig, masyadong physical daw yung NCAA at yung mga teams. Pero lagi naman natin naririnig yan, even in other leagues. But we really do not know ano bang basihan ng pagiging physical. Or is that something positive or negative? But ang isa lang ang dapat maliwanag, no? Kasi there should be no intention to hurt anyone. That's where we draw the line. But physicality is good because basketball is a physical game. Ang iiwasan lang natin yung may intention na makapanakit. But it's easier said than done because during in-game, tempers run high, emotions come to a boiling point, and sometimes if you fail to control it, talagang it escalates into a fight. Yun ang challenge ng nating lahat, hindi lang yung teams, but everyone who has something to do with the game.
Okay.
Regarding that, kasi ako po, fan ako eh. Basketball fan ako, player po ako, and I'm a coach. Are the officiating crew, and I mean, full disclosure, are they being also investigated? Dahil there are rumors that there are witnesses saying that prior to the brawl, a referee said some choice words to Mr. Amores. Are we looking into that?
Actually, we are not yet finished with the investigation. We just had to come out with the sanctions for the players and the team within 24 hours. That's why the agility of the MANCOM was put into test, and we came out with sanctions before the deadline. But as far as all other peripherals regarding NCAA games, we are still continuously investigating it so that we can augment security, come up with better officiating, if needed, training for referees, no? And also the statement of being one as a league, as an NCAA league, not only involving our players, the schools, but even the officials themselves and the venue within which we're playing.
Coach Hammer, if I may add to that, it's not only the officials and the players, but even the audience gets drawn, and this becomes one complex social group. And there is also talk that there was some negative comments coming from the audience which fed into this situation.
Okay. So before we get there, Dr. Jose, because we've launched a committee, an ad hoc committee regarding this to investigate the incident. Now, this is outside the NCAA. SBP, Samahan ng Basketball ng Pilipinas, nag-reach out sa JRU at saka sa College of St. Benilde MANCOM representatives. Now, apart from the committee that we've established headed by Sir Herc, is the Federation going to carry out a separate committee to investigate the situation?
Well, we cannot speculate on what the SBP will do. But if there's any indication dun sa statement ni Sir Sunny Barrios, we completely agree dun sa sinabi niya that he's leaving everything and trusting it to the NCAA, that they will be guided by their own rules and manual of operations. Kami po ay nagpapasalamat kung ganon. Because, all criticisms are welcome, suggestions, even unfair ones. But at the end of the day, we will be governed by our own rules, no, na established na. But we will not stop there. No? The rules should always be evolving. No? There will always be new circumstances. Kaya po, we're taking this seriously. We will review it.
Okay. Attorney, thank you.
Going back to Coach Herc, sinabi niyo po kanina na tuloy pa rin yung investigation on this Amores crisis. With all that's being said on social media, is there a possibility that you will consider upgrading your decision regarding Amores from an indefinite suspension to a lifetime ban in the NCAA?
You know, the NCAA is composed of educational institutions. Our athletes are all student athletes, okay? So, having said that, you know, we always bear in mind that sports is an adjunct to the whole educational process. We are wanting to make use of those situations as an educational experience. And again, having said that, we do not want to close all venues for reform, no? And that's why we're giving us, even how small it is, a chance for John to reform and possibly, maybe after appealing or demonstrating genuine reform, for him to come back, just so that we do not jeopardize his whole career or even future, no? Just because of one mistake.
That's the reason why we opted for indefinite suspension as opposed to a lifetime ban. Okay.
I'm not even sure the NCAA has the authority to ban someone for life. I guess we can ban the person from the NCAA. But having, you know, to add to what Herc has said, the process of returning is really going to be a very meticulous and detailed one. You know, it's not as if indefinite means, oh, he can just come back tomorrow. I'm sure the policy board will want to have a say as to what the conditions will be. And I'm not really sure that those conditions can be fulfilled in any reasonable time, like a year or so. And then I heard that there was a statement that in fact JRU has separated him from the team already.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the statement that's been floating around on social media right now. Dr. Campos, you touched on it a while ago, but moving forward, what are the plans of the NCAA, the management committee also, to avoid a crisis like this from happening again in the future?
Well, for one thing, we are expanding the support for students or the athletes beyond just physical fitness. We've come to recognize that mental wellness is a very important aspect and maybe a continuing support these students will need. We're also talking about you know, our students who are, and their friends, perhaps who are part of the audience, for us to prepare them and include in some aspect of the education some respect for the athletes, and maybe we can even use this as a case in point of how things can get off the rails if people just start using choice words, to borrow a term from Coach Hammer. You know, and of course we have to look into the management of the game by the officials, by the commissioner, and truth be told, you know, hindsight is always perfect. The challenge always is a new situation comes up and it's not something you've encountered before, and that's really what we have here. We also have incomplete information getting to the public. They're making judgments based on a few comments, but you know, maybe what we should have had to do was come up with this statement and this forum much earlier than we did.
Thank you, Dr. Campos. Going back to attorney here, because this is your expertise, what is your reaction to the filing of Benilde Blazers players Jimboy Pastoran and Tane Davis?
Well, as mentioned in our statement, we recognize that, we respect that that's well within the rights of the parents, and we leave it to the authorities on the liabilities, kung meron man criminally or even civilly. But then again, we will be focused on the status of players in the NCAA alone, and we will not be affected by what is happening outside. No? We let that be handled by our courts of law. But we respect their decision.
Okay.
Just to augment what Dr. Campos said, every team has its mental strength, mental toughness, and psychological provisions in its program. But right now, the NCAA is already thinking of making it institutional, despite the fact that every team has their own. So we're going to make it institutional already.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sir Hurt. All right. So, Sir Hurt, Dr. Campos touched on this already regarding security. You are in the process of retraining them already. Can you give us an update on this? Because he mentioned that we've also added security personnel, because one of the concerns that really came up, these past few days, sabi nila yung security during that incident nung nangyayari yon was lacking. So, nasa na tayo in the process of retraining our security personnel and adding some force here on the court as well.
Yeah, well, actually, right now, we added more bouncers to man the floor, as well as even the stands. Not to mention, of course, having two. Ito, I don't want to alarm the public, pero meron ng 4 na police. Yung dalawa doon, SWAT team members.
Okay.
But, of course, suffice it to say that we have already
Beefed up.
augmented,
Yeah,
beefed
okay.
up the security.
Although I would like to add to that, the public may be alarmed by the term SWAT. They should be trained in crowd control, not in some kind of terrorism situation.
All right.
Masyado mabigat, eh. Baka kailangan ng extra bouncer,
Oo
coach,
nga, teka lang.
Coach, alam ko nag-retire ka na sa ganyan. Pwede pa kami magpalista. Pwede.
Kung malaki-laki lang ako, mag-a-apply
Well, all I
ako
can
bouncer.
say is that in the game between Arellano and Perpetual yesterday,
Mabilis.
nung nagkatulakan, napakabilis po ng mga bouncers na pumasok sa
Hindi.
court to prevent any violence from happening.
Okay.
Anton, can we call them discipline officers? Maybe
Yes,
that's
let's not
Discipline
call them SWAT.
officers.
Let's not call them SWAT.
Saka, alam mo ba't mabilis? Kasi ginamit na ni Coach Herc yung agility na term, eh. Coach, favorite mo yan, ah. Favorite mo yan.
So these are highly trained discipline officers.
yes.
Okay, let's call them that. But you touched on it earlier, Dr. Campos, that there were fans involved, right, behind the Benilde bench, and some audience members goading on Amores, shouting, even cursing, gesturing towards him. Now, will the NCAA be taking action on this, since people say, this is part of the game. It's part of the game that we have hecklers, quote unquote.
Well, there is one level where every school will be enjoined to encourage its students to behave with some decorum. I suppose getting excited and screaming is fine, but choice words directed at personalities, that is like lighting a fuse on a fire, or lighting the fuse. So we have to, the best we can do is try to keep our audience, if we have faculty and staff who are part of the audience, then we will have to advise them. We are expecting them to get our audience calm down or something like that. But other than that, I don't know if we can really take any more action on the audience.
I just would like to add to that. Siguro it really needs reminding yung mga spectators, they're mostly students eh. No, the school should remind them that they're covered by their student handbook, student discipline policies. Kasi ano pa rin to eh. Part pa rin to ng school activity. No? Even the faculty, so be appropriate pa rin. No? Bawal yung choice words.
Yes.
At saka,
Choice words.
Suspended yan, or may mga, di ba, nasa student handbook yan, Mart. I mean, we went through it in college that there is a certain code of conduct that you need to exemplify. You're representing your school in a manner that should be uplifting, not only for yourself, but also for your school community. So that's basically it, I think.
Okay.
You know what, going back to what Dr. Campos said, I think he's right in us not being carried away too much by what's being said online. But just to clear the air, kasi may mga nagsasalita dyan na nagsasabing, why did it take so long for the league to conduct an investigation? And I'm sure Coach does not agree with that.
Naka-flex na si Coach, eh, no?
Diyan, sa
I
totoo
don't agree
lang.
with that either.
Yeah, sa totoo lang, immediately after the incident, in fact, it was not yet as calm as it should have been. No? There were still some action going on. There was already thought of constituting an investigating committee. And that was soon enough formed. During that same day, in fact, that night, no? That afternoon, in fact, it was formed and then we started the work already. And we came out with sanctions within the prescribed time limit, which is 24 hours. We needed to wait for all the reports to come in. Basically, one of the reports that needed to come in was the commissioner's report, because he's the one in charge of the game. So we needed to wait for his report and then met immediately after receiving the report, and then soon after put out the sanctions. And this was announced by Father Vic.
Yes.
Vic Calvo.
Right after the game.
Yes,
Right
the
after the game.
designated spokesperson of the NCAA Mancom them. Okay, so I beg to disagree. Again, the Mancom was quick enough.
It
to
was
do
right after the game, Antonio, di ba? Father Vic went up with Bo, and I think you did the game. The NCAA gave out their statement kasi investigation, hindi po pwedeng padalos-dalos. Kailangan makita lahat ng mga anggulo to have a better viewpoint, and para it works for all parties. Hindi tayo pwedeng banat lang ng banat.
We respect all views and opinions, and we welcome all criticisms, but we want to put it clear. No?
Context.
That in context that the NCAA was quick enough to react and decide with respect to the incident.
I think one of the challenges is different groups have different ideas of what the right decision is. And once we make a decision, there are those who say, well, he should have been banned for life, etc. And I think we've gone over this as to why we can't just do anything like banning people for life. You know?
Yeah. Okay. Can I just say, yun yung pinaka-animated na nakita ko si Sir Herc,
Dapat nagsisit-in ka para sa mga classes namin doon.
Medyo napatayo doon si Sir Herc. All right, so gentlemen, now to wrap up the conversation here, we've shared a lot of official statements here, and we've addressed some of the issues and speculations, especially on social media. Just a message to the public, and I think this needs to come from Dr. Campos. Message to the public regarding this incident,
Anton, but ako, kasi ba akong pinakamatanda?
Hindi naman, Dr. Campos. Hindi, kasi president of the NCAA Season 98 Policy Board.
Thank you.
Go.
Well, I think we just have to reiterate what's in the statement read by Attorney Joseph, which is a statement of the NCAA. We appeal for sobriety. Perhaps we have not satisfied everyone's prescribed decision, but you have to remember we are a school, or we are a group of schools, and our mission is to give people an opportunity to develop their talents and contribute to society. And we cannot just shut the door and in effect impose an athletic capital punishment on someone at the age of their early 20s when they're just, becoming who they might be. And so, but having said that, we know the gravity of what has happened, and we apologize to the public and to everyone concerned if it took us this long to communicate with you. But rest assured, we are taking everything we've learned from this to make this a better game and a better tournament. And thank you to everyone.
Dr. Campos, thank you so much. So, yeah, that's a wrap for our interview today.